Welcome to Raw Radio.
And we're live, Gary.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask how are you
No, you don't
because
want
you are grumpy.
to
Listen,
know.
if you're listening to this takeaway right now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to send Gary a message on your social media.
Oh,
Find
really?
Gary, find him, and tell him, Gary, please don't be grumpy. He's extra grumpy today. I don't even know why. That's how I know he's super grumpy. He doesn't want to tell me why he's
Yep,
grumpy.
that's right. I'm keeping it to myself.
Probably better for the
I'm gonna
success of the
unload
show.
on some unsuspecting victim. When Ray gets here, he's gonna get it. Where's Ray?
Well, speaking of your very raw like attitude,
Uh-huh. Oh, nice segue.
all right, there you go. There you go.
Did you-
Rolling
yeah,
this right
and
in,
you hit
right?
record. It's like you're a professional at this.
Hey,
You're
listen,
getting good.
It's all about making improvements, right?
It is. It is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
All right.
So we talked to Nick.
Yes. Nick Rahn. And
First of
yeah,
all, if you didn't listen to the episode, I'm going to frame it right now. It is as raw as it gets, and it's extremely long. This is by far the
yeah,
longest
it's a long
episode we've
one.
ever done.
It's as
Very,
raw
very
as it
long.
gets. Don't listen to it with the kids in the room. Um, and definitely check it out if you want to hear some incredible stories, some incredible obstacles that people have gone through and come out on the other side. And it is all told with a attitude of, kind of like, screw it, this is it. And and also a lot of vulnerability. So there's a dichotomy there of, like, take it or leave it, but also a lot of openness and vulnerability, which we don't get often, I don't think, on podcasts like this, or even in the environment that we kind of live in, as far as like being on the mats and things like that.
Right.
Emotional vulnerability.
Yeah, I think it was very interesting. And I don't want to talk specifically about Nick or his story or what we talked about in the episode, but it was very interesting because in today's world, when we live surrounded by social media and we essentially live on social media, in some capacity,
Mm-hmm.
there is this perception that we create for a reason, right? But we do create perception. It's very easy to judge people. I think create this image of somebody watching handful of photos that they post and they're always smiling,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't often see the other side of the whole story.
Yeah, they don't
So
want it seen.
it was right. And it was very refreshing in a way. And I don't know if refreshing is the right word because there's some tragedy going on that Nick was talking about, or he was, he's gone through. But it was very refreshing to hear somebody talk about his life as raw as he did. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was mind blowing, right? What's your take, Gary, on this um vulnerable approach to life, meaning this is what it is. I'm not, I really don't care what others think. I'm just putting it out there. This is my life. What's your
Yeah.
take on this?
Well, I think the importance of opening up and letting people see that you're vulnerable, telling your story, the true, honest story of the things that have happened to you in your life. And especially when it comes to something like mental health, uh, I think that the benefits of doing so far outweigh the risks of doing so. And I don't think people see that yet in our society, especially in the alpha male dominated society kind of that we are involved in a lot of times. um it's really hard because your vulnerability often is seen as weakness. um it's embarrassing a lot of times, or it feels embarrassing. You shouldn't be embarrassed, but it feels that way when you open up about some things, and you show your raw emotions. um but I think it's super, super important, especially in, I know we're not going to talk too much about Nick, but Nick was in the armed service. He was deployed 4 times, I think. And when you bottle things in that have happened to you throughout your entire life, um, that stuff eats away at you and it puts you in a very negative spot.
Yeah, and I think it's even beyond these extremes. Well, let's be honest. I mean, his story is very extreme
Mm-hmm.
in relation to majority of society out there. Um, excuse me. But even if we don't take it to that level, having that vulnerability and exposure and putting yourself out there is really important, I think, to our own improvement, our
Mm-hmm.
own self progression, if you will, towards the better me.
Yeah.
If we are unable to identify um, these points of contention, these things that sit inside us that we don't want to share with others, it's very difficult for us to really one comprehend what is happening and let alone even make any adjustments whatsoever. And I know it's easier said than done. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys are like, yeah. You haven't been in my shoes, and I get that part. I probably haven't, but I think all of us, as we think about this, we all have our own challenges in life,
Yeah,
and
for
one,
sure.
comparing to somebody else is not fair. But two, we all deal with these challenges differently. And some of them are harder than others. Some of them hit us harder than others. Some are very personal, very close to us. Um, but I just think that often sharing them with somebody else, and it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be the rest of the world on Instagram, but sharing with somebody, often help us. Different perspective from people, different view on life. Sometimes could
Yeah.
change really the way how we look at things.
Yeah. And I think the problem with like doing it on social media is you get those canned answers of, oh, but you're a wonderful person. Oh, but you're beautiful. You do so much,
Oh yeah.
but that it never
Oh,
gets to
you
the
will win next time.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And it never gets to the root of the issue. Um, I think that telling a stranger, and what I mean by that is if you have some things that are really bothering you that you think are holding you back, um, talk to a therapist, go talk to a professional. I know from firsthand experience that when you do that, man, does a weight get lifted off of your chest. Um, and then you're able to, and once you spit it out and really confront it, um, you're able to start chipping away at it and dealing with it and seeing how it's affected you negatively, the decisions you've made because of it, good and bad. Um, and when you're raw and open like that, I think it really changes who you are, or maybe brings out the real you even,
Hmm.
and then you're able to start moving forward and dealing with things and putting that past that's been bothering you. You can finally really put it behind you instead of just kind of you know stuffing it deep inside and not talking about it and
Hmm.
letting it manifest in some negative ways.
No, I agree 100%. And I want to segue this into a jiu-jitsu or situations on the mat because ultimately, most of the show is about that. And I've seen it so many times where that vulnerability is not exposed when we train jiu-jitsu, in a sense of this is what I'm struggling with, but I'm afraid to ask a question. I'm afraid
Mm-hmm.
because this is a stupid thing. This is something that I can figure on my own, or maybe things don't go according to my plan, and I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna let it go, and often these things, we battle these things inside us instead of actually finding solutions,
Mm-hmm.
because once the
Yes, for
solution
sure.
is found, the things are so much easier. We can move on. We can continue troubleshooting. We can continue learning, exploring. Our mind our minds are open and ready to receive more information.
Yeah.
um,
And you learn to accept the things that you can't really control as well, and I mean that's always beneficial.
and that's something that Nick talked about too, right? Learn what you can and cannot control. This is the big factor.
Mhm.
These things are I'm in charge of. I can make a decision that will directly impact the result, right? But there are some things that are completely out of my control. And no matter what I do, no matter what I say, they're out of my reach.
Mhm.
So I can fight it or I can accept and work around it.
Yeah, for sure. You can take it into consideration. Like I said, it's all it, all these things that have happened to you that you've had trouble dealing with in your life. You can now start taking things into consideration and helping you make better decisions. And if we're still talking about jujitsu, it's like, okay, I know this isn't working for me. Why? Start asking questions. If it's still not working for you, well, it's time to move on to something else. Maybe this just isn't this technique or this concept isn't for you, and you can move on to something else instead of thinking, man, first it's like, oh, I've hit a plateau. I'm not getting any better, and then it's like, no, I suck, and this sucks and I don't want to be here and I'm just getting smashed and this is
Mhm.
terrible. And I think a lot of people, most people go through that experience on the mats. And I think it drives a lot of people to quit. But if you can accept it and say, these are the things I can do, I'll never be as fast as that guy. I'll never be as strong as that guy, but I can do these other things to make my jujitsu better. Um, then you can get out, you will get better.
Mhm.
That plateau will be over. The next time you hit one, you're going to know how to deal with it better. And I think, really that translates into your everyday life as well.
Yeah, I would be actually interested to hear from some professionals who deal with these situations on a daily basis. How do you breach that moment when you are so inside that vortex of this is so hard to I need help, because I think this is the hardest part, right? Acknowledging and reaching out, because once we reach out, then we have that support network, then we have
Mhm.
that conversation. But the first step is so difficult, the anxiety associated with it, and obviously dealing with these situations emotionally inside us. And often, well, often they are very difficult, but in some cases they are very tragic. They
Yeah.
lead into the ultimate consequence, which none of us really want to see or explore. Until we find ourselves in that point of no return, if you will, right?
Yeah. You need to be, I think that, you know, I don't know why I'm thinking about this. It keeps popping into my head, but like alcoholics, when you have to admit you have a problem, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the hardest part. And and I think in the rest of your life, you have to admit you have problems. You have to admit you don't have the solutions. You
Hmm.
have to admit you're not the smartest. You have to admit you're not the toughest. You have to admit that you can't fix everything on your own. Um, and then you can start developing ways to deal with the things that are going on in your life. It would be great. We should maybe get somebody on who is a professional and also is on the mats. I think that would be an
Yeah, listen, if
awesome
you're listening
podcast.
to absolutely, if you're listening to this, and it doesn't matter of your rank or the experience on the mat, but if you do train and you are in the profession of helping people with some of these challenges, give us a shout out. I mean, contact us, and we would love to have the conversation with you. I would be really curious to actually talk about how do you deal with some of these, even like a competition loss, or completely feeling unsuccessful, the anxiety that comes with being on the mat and being smashed. What if you were a smaller person and you getting demolished constantly, right? I mean, we talked about several females. I mean, it is like the message was pretty simple from all of them. Essentially, it's like, yeah, I mean, I've been getting smashed for years until I wasn't.
Mhm.
It would be very interesting to actually have a conversation with somebody. So if you're listening to this and you are a professional in that field, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, check us out or reach out, I should say, and we would be happy to have you on. I don't know, all I can say is when you have you know a lot of emotional problems going on, you got to make the step to open up, be vulnerable. It's hard, but I think when you do, and you start processing everything and going through the processes of getting better, um, your life is going to improve dramatically. And
And
do it.
speaking of improvement, one of the things that Nick mentioned is that the jiu-jitsu dynamics that take place on the mat when you're studying jiu-jitsu and you're sparring and you're going through these obstacles of jiu-jitsu, if you will, are very comparable to some of these challenges that he was facing in life. And really, jiu-jitsu really made a positive impact on him from the perspective of anxiety and dealing with some of those challenges and obstacles and going through the anxiety of finding
Yeah.
yourself in these positions of what's happening right now, nothing else matters, is this moment right here where we are, and what do I do about it? So that was very refreshing, if you will,
Hmm.
considering his entire story. And I'm really glad that what he's doing with his life right now. Like again, we keep coming back to him, but it's such a mind blowing story of struggle and pain and just sadness in a way, and all of it comes around to this one pivot point, and now he's doing amazing things. I mean, it's mind blowing the things that he does in for the veterans, and then for
Yeah.
even within the jiu-jitsu community, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Check out Warrior's Next Adventure to learn more about what he's doing and what he's been through. But yeah, it's funny. There's this weird. I always think there's a weird parallel sometimes with jujitsu, and um, you know, you would think that somebody who's suffering from anxiety, somebody who's can't deal with situations going on in their lives or their past, that
Hmm.
getting on the mat wouldn't be helpful, because
Yeah,
now you've got somebody who's sitting on your, who's on your chest,
right.
who's not letting you breathe, who is potentially choking you, or submitting you in some other way. But at some point, you start realizing, yeah, you're living in the moment, and how can I make this situation better? What can I do to get out of this situation? And hopefully that carries over into your regular life. It's a really weird parallel how it helps people, because you think it could make it worse, right? I'm having an awful day, and all
What
this
what
stuff is swirling around, and now I get to the mat and I'm getting destroyed round after round after round. But you know what? Afterwards, if you can deal with it, um, you kind of feel better about things, and then you're like, how can I, if I can get better at this, if I can come back tomorrow. I have, like, if I don't get, when I'm going with certain people, if I don't get tapped X amount of times, today was better than yesterday. Let's go for one less tomorrow, and then it's all of a sudden you're like, hey, he didn't get me at all that round. He didn't get me once that round.
hmm
And,
the
you
satisfaction.
know, yeah, yeah, of dealing with these issues and these problems, right? And if you could do that outside, off the mats as well, if you can carry that over, man, it really does change your life.
Yeah, you hit it right on the spot. It's and this is not the first time that this is being brought up. So you or Nick are not the first people who mentioned this. But like, if you go through these struggles, often one would think that avoiding these compromised positions
Hmm.
in life in general would be the smartest thing you can do. And yet, when you step on the mat and actually you put yourself in another layer of these complexities, is actually allowing you to come around. And truthfully, I know so many people who have said this endless amount of times. Is like the mat is the getaway. The mat
Hmm.
is the point where I don't have to think about these struggles that I have on daily basis, whether it's job, family, personal, emotional, and some of
Hmm.
them are bigger than others, but the message is the same. Getting and being on a mat, it is so refreshing in a way.
Yeah.
Mind stimulation is so strong that it makes us feel accomplished, and it really helps with a lot of those life situations.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a great stress reliever, right? We've all seen the memes of the guy me before jujitsu, and he's crazy, and me after jujitsu, and he's nice and relaxed, or the guy in his car freaking out because he's going to be late, or he got stuck at work or whatever. Yeah, you would think that the stresses of this physical raw activity
Hmm.
would pile on to all those other stressors, but it really relieves it. And there's also, we've touched on vulnerability. There's also, you putting yourself in a very vulnerable spot.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
when your hand comes up, and there's that half a second when you're deciding if you should tap or not, right? That's a pretty vulnerable position. You're saying I submit. You're saying uncle, and
You say what?
Uncle. You never said uncle?
No.
No?
No.
Like when you were a kid and somebody's twisting your arm behind your back, say uncle, say uncle.
No, I grew up in Europe.
Never?
We don't have that stuff.
You don't have uncles in Europe?
Well, we do, but we don't say uncle when somebody's twisting my arm.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from or why, but yes, that is something that happens here in this country to kids all the time. It used to when I was growing up. I know I'm a little older.
I have a
But,
feeling like
yeah.
we should put a vote out there to make sure that you're not making this
Dude.
up.
All right, when people are walking through the door tonight, I'll ask, and I'll let you know.
Listen, below this episode, I want everybody to comment to tell me if this is true. I don't believe.
Uncle,
believe you.
yes,
Uncle.
for sure. It's a true thing. It's a true
Oh
thing.
my God.
Now you made me lose my train of thought, but you're in a
Good.
vulnerable, you're in a vulnerable spot, right? And I think it's not quite as an emotional vulnerability, but it is still vulnerable. And I think when you have that emotional vulnerability as well, if you can open up that way, it's only going to be helpful for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we wrap this up, often we find ourselves in these positions where we sit on the couch. We don't want to get up because we are just too stressed out after a long day. We just want to quote unquote relax. I encourage you guys to actually change that mind.
Mm-hmm.
Go against the feeling in your head, against the thought in your mind. Get up, pick up the bag, get on the mat. I am pretty confident that your mind will be changed the moment that foot steps on the mat and you see your training partners. You go through those rounds, you go through these drilling sessions or the class. I'm pretty sure you're going to be happy that you got up and you didn't stay back home. So
yeah,
if,
do it.
If you're not training tonight, you should.
Yeah. And even if you don't train, if you're listening to this and you don't train, go make your bed. Go do that little chore that's been nagging you around the house that you haven't gotten to. All those little accomplishments pile up, and the next thing you know,
did you make your bed this morning?
No, Margaret made the bed this morning. We have a rule: the last one out makes the bed. And I was up earlier than her, and I usually get up before her, so I don't have to make the bed. But no, I did not make.
It
the
seems
bed
like
this
an
morning.
unfair rule. I think you should make the bed.
Is it? You think I should do it every time? All right. I do it better. I don't know if that matters, but I do a better job. It looks much nicer when I'm done.
I see.
Everything is square. There's very little wrinkles. The pillows, all those pillows that women make you put on the bed. Those are all properly placed.
Everybody has a visual of your bedroom right now. Great.
Yeah, that's usually what happens when people meet me. They're like, "What? I really want to know what his bedroom looks like."
Let's finish this.
We should wrap
this is getting
derailed
completely.
It is. I don't even know if I should go back to this or not. But hey, if you're struggling, reach out, talk to somebody about it. Get it off your chest. Talk to a professional. Don't let it eat away at you. And like Thomas said too, get up off the couch, grab your bag, go to the gym. You're going to feel better about yourself afterwards. And all those little things that you do like that pile up. The negative piles up, and so does the positive. So why not pile on those positive things?
If you're a veteran, make sure you check out Nick. Gary, what's his website?
Warriors Next Adventure. Check them out. They're doing amazing things for people. And,
yeah, everywhere on social media, on the internet. Check them out. I mean, it's worth it. I was mind blown, and he's a great guy. Let's wrap this up for today.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Up to the next one. Later.
Thank you for listening to Raw Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.